thing, whatever you want. It's sort of I know. It's
We will have lunch from 12. We will have lunch from 12 to 1 o'clock, and I hope we'll get back here at 1 o'clock because we have so many things we want to cover, and you have so many questions you like, discussion. So we're going to be not straight onto the schedule, but we wanted to accommodate all the needs and make you feel that you have changed yourself, you have grown, you have learned. Okay? And here's Paul again.
Okay. What can you say about transference and countertransference? The one statement I want to make again is that a proper understanding of transference and countertransference is essential for good practice. Because if you it's difficult to explain, but if you do not have a good understanding about the danger and the prevalence of transference and countertransference, and often you fall in the trap that your client set up for you and ruin your career. Now, theoretically, the whole idea of transference is come from Freud, all right? But the idea of projective identification comes from Melanie Klein. Have you heard about her? So Melanie Klein is
Dr. Wong, would you please enlarge the slide?
okay. Better? Thank you. Right. So Melanie Klein took Freud's idea one step further. Okay? Because Freud, when he talk about unconscious motive, see, Freud is working with the intra-psyche model, working within the person, intra-psyche. But Melanie Klein extend that into interpersonal unconsciousness, okay? Become a relational thing, from the intra-psyche to inter-psyche. I mean, the whole theory is pretty complicated. It's based on the child's attachment to the mother. For example, if the child is enjoying the feeding in mother's arm, needs to satisfy, then this attachment is good breath. If the baby doesn't get enough milk, get angry, attacking the nipple with the teeth and whatever, that's a bad breath. So the mother has good breath and bad breath, and then a splitting occurs, right? A splitting. And so it's a very complicated scheme based on the infant trying to cope with the relationship with the mother. Okay? So as a result, they develop all kinds of projective identification, like dependency, objective identification, power, sexuality, and all kinds of projective needs are developed in childhood, during infancy. So it's quite complicated. I mean, at UBC, they have a course called, the book they use, called Projective Identification, but Cashton, the book Cashton. Have you read that book? It's quite deep. Okay? They use that as one of the courses on projective identification. So we can't deal with all the detail today, but that comes from Melanie Klein. Okay. So now the question is that how do you manage transference and countertransference? Before the break, I mentioned that Freud discovered that if you recognize transference, countertransference, maybe that's the best way to bring the unconscious stuff into consciousness. Why the client understand why she was behave that way according to the Freudian assumption that when you bring to consciousness, the problem is solved. Okay? When the issue is brought into consciousness, it's not a problem. Oh, I have this need. Once I realize that I have this need, then we will find more reality-based method to meet that need. See, before those emotional needs, what is fear, what is love or dependency, those emotional needs is buried in the unconscious mind and projected to someone inappropriately. So what happened? It's doomed to fail, right? People project themselves. No way a psychiatrist or psychologist can become your father. There's no way the psychologist or psychiatrist or self-therapist can be a lover. So those fantasies eventually harm the client. Right? Even harm because it cannot be fulfilled. Yeah. So Freud said that, well, it's not a bad thing to happen because the material to work with. Okay. So trying to interpret this event to the client to understand, you want to meet the need for a father which you never had, okay, or whatever the problem is. So you interpret the psychologist will interpret the phenomenon through the client interpretation and the working through and help the client to get out of that. But here's the trick. If you interpret the transference prematurely, what will happen? The client will feel insulted, right? Right? What do you think you are? What makes you think that you know? Before building a trust, before building a relation of trust or knowledge, the client might be very angry with you. Say, you know nothing about me. You know nothing about my mother. How dare you say those things about me? So it can get in danger. Okay? But when the client is ready, when there's a firm relationship of respect, the client, oh yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about that. So that's one way, okay? The second point, promote a safe, secure, therapeutic relationship even when the client is able to understand. So the key is relationship. Now, if the client doesn't understand what you said, if there's already a safe and secure, strong therapeutic relationship, so that will allow you to continue. But don't let the interpretation ruin the relationship.